Good evening, I hereby call this meeting to order. We'll stand and do a flag salute. Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do a roll call.
Leslie? Here.
Here.
Katie? Here. Junior? Isaac?
Here.
Brenda? Here. Paul Keeper?
Here.
Lisa? Here. Sonia? Here. Ted?
Here.
David?
Here.
Bill? Who was that one? Bill Ellis? Alejandra? Here.
So we have a quorum. Are you done with the roll? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a quorum. All right. Says we need to appoint a budget committee chair. How do we do that? How do we do that?
I would like to nominate Lisa.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, we have a nomination. Do we have a second?
Okay, seconded.
Okay. We have a nomination and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we have a new chair for today. All right, so we're going to establish some ground rules for our meeting. We're going to talk, since our meeting is for the Urban Renewal Agency, the length of the meeting shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. We shouldn't need any breaks. The length of the individual speaking time will be limited to, just like the city council, will be 3 minutes. And then we'll have a review process. Are there any questions about the ground rules that have just been introduced? Okay. Budget officer, your message, please.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Starting off with the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency. The Boardman Urban Renewal Agency was established on August 19, 2008 to help with developmental activities in designated areas of Boardman. These activities are designated by its governing body. The duration of an urban renewal is for 20 years from the effective date of the plan. Since the establishment of the Urban Renewal Agency, 2 urban renewal districts have been adopted: the Central Boardman Urban Renewal District and the West Boardman Urban Renewal District. Since the inception of these 2 districts, a total of $1,196,810 of construction and area upgrades have been completed, with $670,965 being reimbursed to the city, leaving a balance of $525,845 to be reimbursed in the coming years. The Central Boardman Urban Renewal District was adopted on August 19, 2008, and will expire in 2028. It covers the area from Southeast Front Street to Wilson Lane along the east side of Main Street. In 2014, a 900-foot water and sewer lines were constructed from Oregon Trail Boulevard North to Southeast Front Street, with additional connections and street upgrades on Southeast Front Street. In fiscal year 2015-2016, a commercial entity was constructed and has been operational on Southeast Front Street. There are currently 2 additional ventures with active construction in that area. In 2018-2019, an upgrade to the city's main water line along Wilson Road was completed. From 2017 through fiscal year 2020, that's a typo of mine. The district has made reimbursement payments totaling $437,785 from property taxes on the debt and operating costs owed to the city of Boardman, with a remaining balance of $145,210. The city remains supportive of any and all development in this district and thus has proposed the 2021-2022 budget to be proactive of any future development, with capital street projects being a priority. The West Boardman Urban Renewal District was adopted on November 18, 2013, covering 169.7 acres in West Boardman. It is bordered by West Wilson Lane to the south and Paul Smith Road to the west. In 2014, the street extension of Chaparral and the construction of additional water and sewer infrastructure were completed. Much of the improvements were aided by in-kind support from the Port of Morrow and financial backing by the city for utility services. 2 duplexes were constructed in 2016 and 2 more were completed in 2019. Additional single-dwelling homes are planned for this area. In fiscal year 2018-2019, Baylor Road was repaired and upgraded. Along with Baylor Road, the city's main water and sewer lines in this housing area were upgraded to replace outdated water and sewer lines and to expand for the needs of the expected growth, with additional housing that is to come in the near future. From 2017 through 2019, the district has made reimbursement payments totaling $281,534 from property taxes on the debt and operating costs owed to the city of Boardman, with a remaining balance of $380,635. The city remains supportive of any and all developments in this district and has proposed, type 1, sorry, the 2021-2022 budget to be proactive of any future development. I respectfully request approval of the 2021-2022 Boardman Urban Renewal Agency proposed budget. Respectfully submitted.
Is that all you need to share?
That's the message.
Does that mean
Lisa.
you're the budget officer? Okay. Lisa,
Chair.
I know with it. Okay. Chair, budget officer, Lisa,
Okay, thank you.
you done.
Okay, so I don't know which one, Marta or Karen, are you going to go through?
I will be going.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's start.
Okay, on page 10, we have the Boardman Central District budget. This urban renewal agency has 2 districts, and so we're starting off with the Central District. There is nothing planned in stone for this district, but like I mentioned, we do have some street projects, and we would like a street project that's a priority for this district. And so the way we have handled these before is the city upfronts the money because the district itself does not have any source to generate any revenues. So the city upfronts the money, and then as property taxes are increased over the years, depending how much they get every year, they pay back the city. And so we have under grants and loans, you would see the 1,500,000, and that would be from the city to this district. All the expenditures for this district would all be related to a project taking place. So if we don't have a project taking place, we wouldn't have these expenditures. So we wouldn't be in a deficit if we didn't loan the money. Any questions on that?
I have a question, and maybe it's just more for explanation to everyone. If you know that there's projects coming into this area, but they're not necessarily going to be on the tax rolls in this coming fiscal year. Right?
And that's the case every year. we know of projects or we hear of projects, but we have no permits submitted, no plans, and so it's always this is when we think maybe future plans will come in, or, you know, a new business will construct and then be on the tax rolls. So we take that into consideration when we are estimating, and we work with the tax assessor very closely when we estimate how many property taxes we can consider will be collected in the fiscal year.
And so the 84,975 tax resources are from the newer developments that are in this stuff.
It takes into account the ones that are already there, and if any are expected to be there in this coming fiscal year. And it also includes any previously assessed taxes that were not paid on time and are overdue and will be paid in the future years. So that includes those prior year taxes.
So anything that gets constructed, I mean, it would have to be constructed before July 1st of this year to go on the tax rolls in this fiscal year.
Yes.
So there's probably not going to be anything new on tax rolls.
Right, for businesses, yes, in this area, in this district. So just specific to this district.
I have a question.
So, this urban renewal agency, that's how we get stuff done through is that, so if we want something done, the urban renewal district does it, and if it needs money, the city gives them money.
If it's within that district only.
So I'm,
So-
right, so
and
this
you're-
map
Yep,
here,
we got the map.
I'm looking here,
Mhm.
so if I want to do street improvements on there, I have to make sure that the city gives the money to the renewal district, because that's where the money comes from.
No, that is not how that works.
Okay, so how does it, I guess that's my question.
So it would have to be a project that we think is, and obviously it would go before city council and all, you know, projects take a long time planning. So if you want a project, it has to fit what the original guidelines were, what the original requests were when this district was established. So the central district and the west district have just a little bit slightly different requests when they were first established. So it has to fit within those requests. If you wanted to do a project in that district and have the city lend the money, it does not stop the city from doing a project in that district and not going through this process of loaning the money.
So I guess my question is, and just for me, and I don't want to make this go any longer, but if the city can just go and spend money and get a project done, why do I have to go through this district to get it done?
With this, having it go through this district would allow you to have some of that money recouped, because you're adding property value to that's what the urban renewal is it's in an area that was very, what's the word you're gonna use?
Blight.
Blight. It's a blight area. And so if you're wanting to upgrade that area, because once you do that, then you're bringing up those property values.
But don't we get the recoup in the property values anyway?
No, but here's the thing you're missing.
Yes, tell me, because I'm obviously missing something,
If you get your tax statement,
okay?
you're gonna get property taxes for the city of Boardman, and you're gonna get property taxes for the urban renewal districts. So when we formed the urban renewal districts, you go out and you talk to all the districts that are in your taxing area, and you say, would you let me have an urban renewal district? And what that means is I will hold those taxes, say, whatever the value of that district was in 2016. They stay that way. And then the city gets whatever the value that comes up in the taxes, and then we can pay back the money that we invested in that.
Well, from the renewal district, that's how they paid it back.
Yes. And so you have to, like you say, not every project is like, you want to spend this money, because you don't want to be out past the date. You have to be done by 24, or whatever this one. So, and we can do a big, at the city council level, I can do a big explanation of how urban renewal works, if you like, but that's the long and short of it. Is it like,
I don't have a problem with that, I was just trying, I thought it almost seemed like, well, we're gonna get the money back anyway from taxes, so.
but what you did is you asked like the park department, the fire department, and every other department, they don't get any more taxes. What you sell them is, I'm gonna put something really great in this property because nothing's been here for 25 years. And then you'll get taxes after I get done taking the tax. My urban renewal is 25 years. Then after 25 years, your increase should way more cover. And when you do these districts, there is a ton of paperwork and calculations and stuff that go into it, so that you're trying not to just sell a bill of goods.
So it's a strategy to increase your income.
Yes, and the value of your city.
Okay, that answered that question. Thank you.
Marty, you want to go ahead with the West Urban Renewal District?
Yes, that part is on page 14, and very similar, the West Urban Renewal District. That one is only budgeted for a loan of $500,000. There's not that much of a capital project idea for that district in this coming fiscal year. But we don't want to leave it at zero in case something does come up. And if we don't appropriate it, then we can't move forward with it.
So you have to put in, you can't put money in like in September. So you put money in it now and you can't add it later.
When we appropriate is what you will, this process with the budget process, we're going through it. The official term is to appropriate. That means that gives us the legal right to spend the money. If we need to, not just if we want to, we think it's, if we need to spend more money than what we have budgeted, we would have to go through this similar process again and do a supplemental budget.
Okay.
So a lot of times, that's why you'll see a figure that is, maybe you think is pretty high. But, you're just anticipating if something would come up, then we'd have the money rather than have to do a supplemental budget.
So there's really no reason, nothing wrong with having a high budget. I
Correct.
mean, you want to have an accurate budget, but it's not going to be detrimental if you're 500,000 heavy.
Right, and it depends where we try not to just, hey, let's have this extra. We do think about the big ticket items that we have, that if we have some major system fail, some major equipment, a piece of equipment fail, it needs to be replaced, not only repaired, but maybe replaced. Do we have those appropriations to go ahead and replace it? And when you have big systems and big equipment, you always want to have that, because you just never know whether those is going to fail. Especially as they age and they're starting to really age.
Thank you. Gonna go through the budget summary.
Okay, on page 17, it's the same two districts that we just went through. It is just now combining them. At the top, we have our resources by district, and then our expenditures by district. And at the bottom of the page, we have them by the expenditures by category. And these are the categories that we must list them by first under state budget law or local budget law.
Okay, are there any more questions for Marta or Karen?
Madam Chair, I have a question. Actually, it's not as basic. I have a question. To me, it seems like we're trying to develop these two urban renewal districts, and that would increase, according to what Karen was saying, the value of our city. My question is there any plans in the very near future? I don't mean 10 years from now, but within a year or two, to construct a street from, say, Prairie, Oregon Trail all the way to Failer to encourage more development in that area?
Am I gonna answer that? I think that the priority, probably first one, it goes on where the priorities are. You're right, that needs to be done. I think that there's others that we probably would be forced to do the one going this way first.
For the developments out there already?
Well, and yes, and whether we pay for it or use urban renewal money, it increases the value of that area.
Okay, so is there anything in the next couple of years to connect and construct Maine to Failer through Oregon Trail?
The only thing I can say is the night that Barry had his heart attack here, that was on the agenda that night, and we had a packed house. The development over there is coming along on Chaparral and stuff, but it's not coming as quickly. So that's when you have to start deciding what the projects are. And you need, like, this one over here, the urban renewal over here, you can't be in debt when you close the program. Here's the other option about the program. Say I see no reason to put more things in an urban renewal district. I can close it early, then all the other districts get their money and then we just fund whatever. But there's a lot of benefits to the urban renewal area just because you have a way to pay for some of the construct capital improvements that you're doing in an area. So I think that your question really needs to be dealt with on the city council level when we're doing our planning for.
That was kind of where I was getting at.
Well,
I
we're talking the budget.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe this was the appropriate venue to
Yeah.
bring it up.
I thought it was a good question. I think what I got out of it was, I think with this project, that road be an example of being able to use the urban renewal or the renewal agency to do that, or maybe the city can do it. So basically, I think maybe both of them could do it.
Could also be combined.
But the part that I thought that maybe was the city council was whether or not we should do that road. Maybe I misunderstood your question, Mr. Beagle.
Well, I think in order to develop these two urban renewal areas, they need to have access. And
Correct.
in order to do that, there needs to be a throughway.
And I think that would be a discussion that we'd have in the city council to be able to do that. And then if we decided that was what direction we want to go, that would be whether we decide the city's gonna do it or we're gonna have the urban renewal do it and then give the money or however we want to distribute the money
Right.
to be able to do that.
And the city council is the governing body for the districts as well.
So it's kind of going on the cuff and I was waiting to see, make sure I was kind of going the right way. So thank you.
And we may be talking about that in the next budget meeting that we have in a few minutes, I don't know, but I can tell you, from our standpoint, it's a real chicken and egg process to put the roads in before you have development out there. It's attractive, but you have to have a source of funds to pay for those roads, and
Well, and that would be my
roads are
next question.
very expensive, so
Right.
the city has to prioritize what they need to spend money on first.
Well, and just for a little history, when we first opened this up over this one here that's central, I think we got about $6,000 in taxes. And then maybe the next year we got 17. So you're not making a very big payment on a couple $100,000.
Multi-million,
Yeah,
multi-million road.
but all of a sudden they recognized that the CenturyLink building was in our urban renewal area. And so now we get, what 80?
Close to 80,000.
Yeah, I mean, so, and with more people doing more things, I mean, we're starting to come up in the revenue, so it's pretty exciting to finally have more revenue.
Thank you,
David,
Madam
did you,
Chair.
David, did you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, well, if there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion. Which is probably on the blue sheet in front of you.
And it needs to be read in its entirety, correct?
Yes.
So I'll move then. I'll move that the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee approve the proposed Boardman Urban Renewal Agency budget for 2021 to 2022 as presented in the amount of $2,272,025. I further move that the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee certify to the Morrow County Tax Assessor a request for the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency for the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing under Section 1C, Article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 456.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the Urban Renewal Agency budget. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Leslie. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion approved.
We're gonna need to do a roll call, correct? Is this the roll call one?
We can do a roll call if we would like.
I don't care. I mean,
Well,
David said yes.
it's up to you. But you want to do a roll call or if you just want to.
I think we're fine. Okay. No opposed. Okay. So now we will move on to the city of Boardman budget. And I'll turn it over to the budget officer.
Thank you. Start off with the budget message. This one's a lot longer.
Can I ask the question? We need to adjourn the first meeting.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, we have adjourned the Urban Renewal Agency meeting at 7:28. And we will open the City of Boardman budget meeting at 7:28.
So does that turn it to me to
We'll need
open?
to do another roll call.
We start, which is like we're starting.
It's like a regular, you start a whole new meeting.
And so now I'm doing it until it gets to her turn, right? Okay, so we'll do a roll call again, please.
Leslie here, Paul Beagle,
Present.
Katie here, Junior, Isaac
Here.
Brenda here, Paul Kiefer,
Here.
Lisa here, Sonia here, Ted,
Here.
David,
Here.
Bill, Alessandra here.
All right, we already have an appointed chair, we have a quorum. We're gonna follow the same ground rules. The length of the meeting will not go longer than 9 PM. Breaks, I was thinking, tell me if I'm wrong, I was thinking 45 minutes, or do you need to go more often? I was thinking 45 minutes for our first one. And then 45 minutes after that, so I was thinking 8:15, and then 9 o'clock we go home. Must
We should be done at
I-
8:15.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't go long.
Well, I was hoped, but yeah, that was just at the maximum time.
Paul,
Yes.
Yeah.
you need somebody needs to do a motion for a new chair for this meeting.
Oh,
This is
sorry.
like a totally different.
Okay. so we'll need to have a motion for a new chair.
Lisa,
Lisa,
she did such a wonderful.
You did a great job.
and it's been seconded, all in favor?
Wait. A guy that makes the motion can't second it.
He did, I did.
Oh,
Isaac did.
Sorry.
Yeah, so Isaac seconded it. This sounds like a softball railroad going down, so. So we have a new chair. And we'll just have our break, plan for a break at 8:15. Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. So we will open the meeting and turn it over to Marta.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor Keeper, members of the City Council, members of the Budget Committee, and members of the Boardman community. I present you the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. Early in the prior fiscal year, we saw the completion of the Master Water Pipeline project, leaving the latter part of the year presumed as having little activity. This was definitely not the case. There were a lot of pre-planning and developmental work in the works. The end result, as we saw in May of 2020, the citizens of Boardman approved a GO bond for a total of $20,320,000 for a new collector well, a water booster pump station, a new water reservoir with an approximate 1 million gallon capacity, the addition of a new 13-acre wastewater lagoon, including the purchase of land, the construction of the lagoon, and wastewater lift stations. The GO bond will also refund the city's prior GO bonds, refunding approximately $4.7 million. The cost of issuance on the bonds will also be financed through the GO bond. I am pleased to announce that only a week ago, we issued all of our bonds, officially known as General Obligation Bonds, Series 2021. We were rated at AA by S&P Global Ratings with a rating of A+ by their underwriters. These ratings reflect the city's financial stability, debt handling, and capital and infrastructure projects viability. Last year, I spoke about the anticipated growth for Boardman. Well, it's not going away this year or next. The visionary leadership and management of Boardman allow for pertinent planning and implementation of the projects needed in time for the increased demand. The ability to leverage our resources is a key element, and the ability to inform the voters of the necessity of debt and convince them to accept it is an even larger key element. The GO bond debt will allow us to use our previous year's savings to complete other projects needed around Boardman. This doubles the work being done and doubles the benefits Boardman will reap after the completion of these projects. Presented in the proposed city budget are the projects anticipated in the coming year, but in a dollar figure rather than in a drawing and specification format. This financial format helps us draw out the feasibility of the projects within the boundaries of the resources available. This budget document is presented in a fund format. Some of these funds contain multiple departments and are further broken down into categories. Other funds are specialty funds. They contain only one operational division with only their fund-specific resources and fund-specific disbursements. Each fund serves a purpose, and each fund has been created by the city to serve those specific purposes as allowed by state law. As we dive into comparison and talk about future projects, the first figure to note is the last figure, our total budget. Our budget contains 2 years of actual historical figures, with 2018-2019 being the oldest year listed. We have gone from an $18 million budget to a $50 million budget in 4 years. This is astonishing and says a lot about Boardman's growth. We are on the uphill curve of this growth, and we're busy staying ahead of the projected needs through various developments. In order to carry out these developments, the city must put forth a financial plan, which we have placed in the importing funds as they pertain to the various departments. Our most broad spectrum fund is the general fund. It encases the general operating activities of the city. Within this fund, we have 5 departments, being the general government, public safety, code compliance, facilities, and general other. All revenues come into the general fund, but expenditures are dispersed as they pertain to each department. Our next set of funds are enterprise funds, most commonly known as the utility funds. The city operates and provides the services to residents on a fee basis for services provided through an enterprise fund. These are the water fund, sewer fund, and street fund. The water fund is in place to capture all the expenses related to providing water service to the residents, commerce, and industries of Boardman. Its revenues come from the fees it charges to provide these services. The sewer fund operates on a similar level, with fees being charged to customers who receive city sewer services, and the expenses are the operating costs associated with providing sewer services. The street fund is unique in that it doesn't charge fees for providing street services. The city provides streets within its boundaries and has only been able to perform minimal maintenance on them. This fund handles expenses for street line striping, road sign replacements and repairs, street cleaning, sidewalk and walkway repairs, and some pothole fillings. Major capital projects for any of these three funds will be run through their pertinent reserve funds. The street fund is primarily funded through the state's road tax apportionment. This is a monthly apportionment based on the fuel taxes collected across the state and dispersed to cities based on their population as a percentage of the population statewide. Last year was an uncanny year with so many unknowns and so many unprecedented everythings. It seems as though it was the term of the year. Due to the repeated unprecedented news headlines, we reduced our budgeted expected resources to allow for the shortfalls in revenues that everyone seemed to be expecting due to COVID-19 pandemic. And to balance, we reduced our expense appropriations. As the months passed by and the restrictions continued to be in place, we realized that few of the state sharing appropriations seemed to be unaffected. This very conservative approach helped us to end the year with healthy year-end balances, which translated into our fiscal year. The garbage fund is also an enterprise fund with a very different operational service provider. This makes it a specialty fund because the city does not provide the service directly. We contract out with sanitary disposal. The city provides all the billing and customer service, while sanitary disposal provides the solid waste pickup and container delivery and disposals. There will be no garbage rate increases this year. Our final enterprise fund is the building fund, which houses the building department. This department provides services to the patrons of the city of Boardman, city of Oregon, Morrow County, and just recently added Gilliam County. During the stay-at-home mandate the state of Oregon put in place last year, the demand for plan approvals and inspections of home improvements and additions increased, not to mention the additional housing developments that are in the area and the commercial construction projects. This department is running full speed. The need to hire a part-time commercial plumbing inspector was addressed, and we were fortunate to be able to fill the position. With building projects expected to continue at a similar pace as the current years, the budget for the building department reflects these numbers. I have also added amounts for the addition of building department services to Gilliam County. This is a brand new intergovernmental agreement, and without having much historical numbers to compare to, the additions are more volatile due to this. When you don't have a history to compare it to, you have an unprecedented time. Back to COVID-19, an unprecedented time of grants, the city received 3 grants last year in relation to COVID-19. The largest was for an internet broadband infrastructure grant. This grant allowed for the city to pay for broadband infrastructure within the city limits of Boardman. Boardman was shovel-ready when this grant opportunity was announced. We had just done a broadband study within the last year, which helped us to be ready. This project was completed as soon as feasibly possible to meet the short deadlines set by the grant opportunity. Boardman was able to meet this deadline and had the infrastructure in place by December 31st, 2020. A second grant allowed us to help the residents who had been affected by COVID-19 and needed financial assistance for rent, mortgage, utilities, and food assistance. It was also for additional public safety, health, and communication services. The third round of grants was to provide assistance to small businesses. These grants allowed us to do so much more than we had planned for, but in areas that were not customary for the city. Once again, unprecedented times. As we walked in uncharted waters with some of those grants, we also had to place some of our projects on hold due to the stay-at-home mandates, pandemic restrictions, and continuous quarantines. This allowed for some of the planned expenditures to hold still for another budget year, but yet increase our beginning balances in our reserves so that we may now have some projects done at a larger scale. In our general reserve, we see a larger cash carryover and a $2 million loan. This reserve has the flexibility in transferring and loaning money to other funds that the enterprise funds cannot do. The $2 million are a standing item for the loans to the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency. The city would like to start some capital street repairs and maintenance this budget year, and some of these fall within the Urban Renewal Agency boundaries. The loan is budgeted, so if these projects become viable, the funding is available. The city is maintaining itself readily available for URA future projects. We have a water reserve fund, a sewer reserve fund, and a street reserve fund. Each one serves its name's purpose as a reserve of its enterprise fund. The reserve funds hold monies for future capital projects. Each year, the city provides transfers into each of these reserves as it is possible. When the capital project is determined, the focus is to try and fund that reserve. Our current focus this year is in the street reserve fund. The water and sewer funds do have capital projects coming up, but they are through a GO bond, and so will be carried out in the capital fund instead of these reserve funds. These reserve funds, however, are available for any unknowns that may arise as the capital project is commenced or for capital improvements needed in the current system, if the current system were to fail. As fiscal year 2021-2022 commences, we see two capital funds. The newly created fund, Capital Projects Fund, is the fund that will encompass the GO bond issued May 2021 capital projects. This fund will carry all revenues and expenses associated with these projects. The second capital fund is the Cdbg Capital Fund. This fund is dedicated to the Boardman Migrant Head Start project. It was a partnership venture with Oregon Child Development Center, as the city agreed to be the sponsor for a community development block grant. This project was to construct an 8,000 square foot modular building with a playground and fenced facility. The project is anticipated to be completed by June 30th, 2021, with final payouts in July 2021. Once the facility is ready, we will have an open house, and we'd love for you to see this wonderful project the city has participated in for the benefit of some of our youngest, the preschoolers. In similarity, we established a new debt fund where we track all the pertinent tax dollars for the newly issued GO bonds and the payments on the debt. The other two debt funds were established when the prior water and sewer GO bonds were issued. Because these two existing debts will be refunded through the new GO bond, the existence of these other two debt funds will be to track the tax dollars received on prior year's assessments and taxation. There will not be any new or current year taxes assessed on these two. The 2021-2022 levy requests $1,236,310, which is approximately $2.22 per 1,000 of assessed value. The general obligation bonds outstanding total is the $20,320,000 as approved by the voters. The mortgage for City Hall does not have a debt fund of its own. The mortgage is paid out of the general fund, the facilities department. The city anticipates paying off the remaining debt of approximately $225,000 by the end of the 2021-2022 fiscal year. In a few pages, I've tried to delineate the larger projects of which the city is planning for this coming fiscal year. It's a guide, it's a tool. It's the feasible projects we anticipate being able to perform with the labor and financial resources available to the city. I appreciate your labor contribution as you sit here today and participate in the budgeting process for the city of Boardman. I respectfully request approval of the 2021-2022 proposed city budget.
Thank you, Marta. That was a great introduction to the budget. I'm impressed you took the time to do all that. So it's a good resource right there for us to go back and be reminded what each of those funds are really supposed to do. Do you want to go ahead and start with the general fund?
Yes. So like I said, our general fund encompasses a lot. It has most departments, has 5 departments, and all the revenues come into just the general funds. And when we talk about the expenditures, then they hit each individual department. And once again, our beginning cash is very large compared to prior years. We have about a month and a half left for this fiscal year to end. And so any other revenues that will be coming in by June 30th will be in this fiscal year. And we have calculated those into this carryover. We have a federal rescue plan grant that we are expecting to receive. And we're pretty sure we will get it before the June 30th, end of the fiscal year. By some of the lobbyists and some of the organizations that help out cities, we have been informed that the city should expect about $760,000 in aid. So once again, that's gonna hit this fiscal year, so it's a carryover into the next one. We also have another request into the Oregon legislature, which they will not close until June 28th. So right before the end of our fiscal year. We have another request into them. We have requested $3 million for street infrastructures, but we're counting on $2 million. We're hoping for $2 million, and so that's what we have budgeted. Again, it's reflected into that carryover. This year, this fiscal year, we received a large grant from CREZ, the Columbia River Enterprise Zone 2. And last fiscal year, although the timing of those were both in the 2020 calendar year. And so that money was also in there because it was not budgeted for, we were not expecting it. And because we did not appropriate it to transfer to a reserve or anything, it's also part of that beginning balance. And so that's why we have this huge beginning balance for this next coming fiscal year. But then as we see further down, that's also why we have a large amount of money being moved over into the reserves. Because there was all these grants that came that weren't expected and these grants that we are hoping to receive. And if we don't receive them, like if the Oregon legislature were to come back and say, well, we're only giving you $1 million. That's where we don't have to transfer what we budgeted for in the transfers into the reserve. You know, we can reduce that one because we're getting less than what we expected. So don't think that just because, you know, we've budgeted all these transfers and if one of these grants were not to come, that, uh-oh, now we're in deep trouble. But if we don't put them in our budget now, then we can't use it for the projects for, like the Oregon legislature, which is for street infrastructure. We wouldn't be able to spend it if we don't appropriate it in the budget. So that's why it's there. We do have a little bit of increases in some of our state sharing revenues. But most of our increase in the general fund throughout all of these departments is the beginning balance and the transfers into the reserves. If we take all of those into account, it shows, you know, a 75% difference from last year. If we take them out, if I were to take out all of the transfers and the reserves, we actually are a little under from our previous year budget. So there's nothing really new out of here. Most of our projects are going to be in our other funds. Out of the water, sewer, and street is our big one for this year that we're hoping to get done, which is what we were not able to do this past budget year. Some of those street projects is what I was referring to in my budget message. Because, you know, even construction workers had to stay 6 feet apart and wear masks and. Does anybody have any questions on any of the departments?
I just have something about the general fund. So our city's well off, correct? I would say we're pretty well off.
Currently, yes.
Yes, currently, yes. And so do you believe that we're doing enough to show our citizens that we're spending their money accordingly and not hoarding it. Do you know what I mean? But you see what I'm saying? I mean, we're having money, but are we spending enough and building enough or doing enough so that the people, our citizens in our community don't think that we're just keeping their money to put it somewhere else?
You know, unless they're really looking at the budget documents and our monthly financials that are presented at the council meetings and really following along, they would, just by looking at financials, you don't see the picture of what's going on. Because, you know, if we have grants coming in and we're spending large amounts of money, then we have another grant coming in, I mean, it's almost a wash on the financial. So if you're not following the projects, you would think that they're not doing anything.
I guess I see money coming in and I see that we're doing things, but are we doing enough to be able to, for our average citizens, say, I think the Boardman's spending their money right? That's the only thing I was thinking.
I think what she said was that this year's an unusual year. If you look back at your past history,
I was noticing that too.
that this is not anywhere near like the other years. It is because we had other, like you say, we're budgeting for 760,000 just because COVID came by.
We've
You know,
never
and-
gotten that before from the state for.
So we can most certainly go out and spend it, but they're gonna have, the citizens will need to look at what we do with the money we have now. By 3 years from now, if I come to you and I say, oh gosh, I got 7 million in there now, then you're gonna think that, oh, all they're doing is making a savings account. But I can feel pretty comfortable that we can do enough road work that needs to be done in Boardman and regular construction things. You know, because, you know, we talk every meeting practically about Laurel Lane. Well, that's $1.3 million or $1.5 million if I'm lucky. Well, where do you think I'm gonna get that money? You know what I'm saying? It's
So I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, we're starting to head into some times of where this town is gonna start really booming, I think, more than it has
Right.
in the previous. And I just think it's important that we just kind of in the back of our head, think, you know, make sure that however we do it, whether it be through with the
BCDA.
BCDA and doing those things. I mean, people are seeing that we're spending their money. It may not, it may not come out of, but they see that money is being sent and they just don't see, oh, I'm paying money to the taxes, I pay my, you know, whatever. Mr. Reed.
To address your concern, we could do a monthly lit, you know, this is kind of what we're doing with your revenue in the North Morrow County Times. It doesn't have to be a large thing, but something that gets out to the general populace to allow them to know, you know, granted, we're paying taxes. This is what the city is doing with the money that we're paying.
Gotcha. All right. Was there any other questions about, I didn't mean to shut you off, Mr. Beagle.
Not a problem.
Is there any other questions that we have? I know that's your job. Gotcha. Sorry. I've only been doing it, what, 5 times? Sorry.
So my comment on all of that is, this is a great opportunity to have, you know, to have some money in the bank and available so that you can sit as a council and prioritize how you want to invest those funds back into the community. And some of that is going to be on things that the people can't really see and touch and feel. And others hopefully will be things that they can. So it's a great problem to have to get to have as much
I know, I'm
money
anxious for
sitting
it.
there. What surprises me is the increase in the tax revenue is not as much as I would have thought it would be, based on all of the new construction this year.
We we work with the tax assessor when we look at our property taxes and how much our assessed value is projected to be. And we do take only 96% of what is projected for us, because that takes into account for those that don't pay their taxes. And that's why we always budget, I know it's not a separate line item here, but we always budget our current taxes and our prior year's taxes separately. Because you always have people who are way behind or just have not paid. And so we use 96%, which is one of the highest in this area, because we do collect most of it.
So given $140,000, from last year, this year,
Yes,
the anticipated
yes.
revenue from taxes.
And the tax assessor takes into consideration all the other, compression of Measure 5 and all of that. So we're very closely with the tax assessor on this matter.
Any other questions about the general fund?
For our water fund, like I mentioned, our GEO bond passed. We issued all of our bonds on May 6th, so literally it was just, well, we're still finishing up. Our official closing is Thursday morning. And so, I hadn't thought about it, but we've got our call at 8:30 in the morning, and some of these guys are on the East Coast, so they're gonna be up bright and early. But we've been going through all of that paperwork and legality and making sure that everything is in place for it. But that doesn't mean that the project has not started. We have already been working on our new water and wastewater projects. And the city has been paying for these. So all the preliminary plans, everything that we need to get going with it, we've been rolling with it. And once we get our GEO bond proceeds, we will be reimbursing the city for those specific expenses that have to do with the GEO bond projects. And that's all in the paper and everything that we had on council and everything like that. So that is going to be received in this fiscal year. So here we go again. It's going to carry over as a beginning balance into the next fiscal year. Those reimbursements. And we've also taken into account that we are getting more new houses, more new customers who will be using water and sewer. We'll get to the sewer fund. And so we've added some of that. And we did go up, not that much, but from the prior fiscal year to this current year, we did add about 28 new customers, residential customers, to the city's list of customers. So some of these, all the capital projects take time. We don't wish that, everything was done in snap of the fingers, but we have a lot of developers, and it's just taking time for them to get all their houses up and going, and but we're excited for all that new growth. We do not have any additional staff to add in the water fund. And our only other capital purchases here are a share of the expense if we were to need to replace one of our heavy equipment that they use, such as the backhoe, because those are aging, they're almost 20 years old. So nothing else really going on there. So any questions on the water fund? So our sewer fund, very similar. Usually when we have a new water customer, they're also a sewer customer.
We hope so.
Yes. So again, about 30 new customers, and then we've added about 30 more into the algorithm for fees collected. And the sewer fund will also be getting a reimbursement, smaller than the water fund, because at first we thought our water project was going to get started And then we would start the sewer project like a year and a half into, after starting the water project with the geobonds. But after, because things change, after looking into it, it seems like they're gonna almost run parallel. So, we got started on some of the wastewater preliminary designs. So they'll be, the sewer fund will be getting some reimbursement as well this fiscal year, which will carry over as a beginning balance into next fiscal year. Any questions on the sewer fund? Our garbage fund, that one is harder to say how many new customers, because when we have a construction company come in for 4 months, they're a new customer, but then 4 months they're here and then they're gone, so they're not a customer anymore. So that one is hard to track as a steady number of this is the new number of customers that we have. But we did see a tremendous increase in garbage customers due to everybody building, not just the new homes coming in, but everybody was building porches, additions, pergolas, fences, like everybody decided to just go at it and upgrade their homes. I guess if they were stuck at home, they might as well buy their home. But then, it's like anytime you do spring cleaning, you end up with a lot of garbage. So we did have a lot of additional garbage revenues come in. Luckily though, we, after talking to sanitary disposal, they will not be doing a garbage rate increase this year. And it's always just a pass-through cost to our clients, so they will not see any increases either. Any questions on the garbage fund?
I have a question. The free dump months, how is that working out? If those are in the garbage fund, aren't they?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
They're working out beautifully when people are able to go and, dump all the debris from cleaning up their homes. We have increased how many containers are out there because we were running into the fact that people were showing up Sunday at noon with their trucks loaded and it was closed because they were full. So the last 2 times we've added additional containers and I don't think we've got any more complaints about that happening. So I think we're good right now.
Yeah, because they come over to the park and dump there. Because the guy over there tells people to go dump at our park rather than there.
Oh,
It's a great place though.
really?
No, it is.
How much does it cost us to do the free dumps?
Around $2,300 each time.
Each month?
Well, we don't do it every month. We
No,
do-
I mean, so we spend
So
just under $5,000.
we did it 3 times.
Right.
3 times.
Well, I think
So-
last year we only did 2 because of COVID. Last year we only did 2. We try to do 3. We usually do 3, but last year we only did 2.
It's such a benefit to the community. I mean, I would suggest doing 4 in a
That
year.
was my,
If it's only $2,300, it's very helpful for people. It helps everybody get.
because the dumps is expensive, going out to the transfer station is expensive.
See, I think that's the thing that now, used to be it wasn't, but I think that the 3 dump is a better deal now. because more people
Absolutely.
Are gonna take advantage of it.
You take 2 truckloads out there, it's $50.
Yeah.
Depending on what you got, but if you take up metal, I took a truckload of metal, and I paid $30 for the dude who was gonna recycle it. And I could have went somewhere else and recycled, but, yeah. If it's only $2,400.
And I like it that they take toxic items like paint and because you can dispose of those things.
On the free dump month, they take those,
Just no tires.
is that right? On the free dump month, they're taking toxic stuff?
Yes, they take
I
that.
think they do, I believe they do, I didn't this year, but I have in the past. So I believe they do. I'm sorry, I should just go through it.
Well, no, I know, it's a big, they do a hazardous waste one. The county does, and that's what I'm trying to figure out is if
They've had a place for you to dispose of those things during the free dump without having to pay additional.
Yes,
But I
Pretty
did-
good.
I
do
did
that.
not make it there this time,
I
in
didn't make
April,
it
and this is
either.
the deadline, because the 30th was.
No, but that makes it even a better deal.
Yeah, still for
Yeah.
$2,300, $2,400 a month. Yeah. Instead of having it in the possibility of going into our water table. Much better to take it there and they send us.
That's a big free up everyone. Thank you, city.
No, I would just say you might want to try for in a year and just see what happens. It's.
Yeah, once a quarter.
Yeah, that would be great, but I mean, winter.
All right, hey, garbage can outside, why not do it free every month?
You know why you got money?
Because his wife is managing the first.
Any other questions about the garbage fund? Okay, let's go on to street fund.
Our street fund. You don't see a lot of the activity here, of the street projects that we've been talking about, because it'll be out of the street reserve fund. So this one is our normal, repairs that we have done. We cannot believe how many signs have to be replaced when they get run over. The walkway on Wilson, after you turn, eastbound off of Anderson, that poor walkway gets hit, I want to say about 4 times a year. Literally 4 times a year, and then guardrails during the winter. So that's where a lot of the repair gets done. But also anytime we have to add any additional crosswalk signs, anything that has to do with streets hits this fund. And like I said, so if you compare it from prior years, this one is pretty in line with prior years, and where this one doesn't receive a lot of additional grants. But the state road tax revenue is reflecting the increase in gas prices, fuel prices that we're seeing, since the fuel tax is a percentage of just the fuel cost. Double-edged sword. We get more money here, but we're all paying for it out of our pocket every time we hit the pumps. Any questions on the street fund? Our building fund is busy. There's not a week that goes by that we do not have plan reviews come in. And plan reviews are for new projects. Our building official has to sit down with all the plans, review page by page to make sure it's all up to code. Make sure everything is there that needs to be there before he can sign off on it, before they can get a permit. So there's a lot of that preliminary work that happens before they actually get a permit. And until there's a permit issued, then it's not officially a new project. Without, giving names to specific projects, this is just reflecting the projects that we anticipate coming in. And we have just recently, will be recently adding Gilliam County as of June 1st. That one is gonna be new to us. It's a service that we will be providing to all of Gilliam County. And just like everything else, it just has taken time to line up all the legality documents, get everybody in line, get everything set up. But that also takes into account adding Gilliam County in there.
Can I ask a question? On building permits, it appears that there is a reduction from last year to the adopted budget. From 1.2 to just under 1.1. Am I reading that correctly?
No, we went up. So we were at $1,099,000 and we're at $1,164,000.
Oh, I'm on the wrong line. Okay, thank you.
Any questions on the building fund? Okay, moving on to the reserve funds. Our general reserve fund. You can see, transferring in 2,345,000, that's from our general fund, that's the big transfer that we're moving over into here. And the loan of $2 million to the urban renewal districts is down in expenses. All the other expenses on here are for those what ifs, possible breakdowns, just those emergencies. Here in the last 3 years, I think we've had to replace an HVAC unit every year, because they just go out. They were all originally installed when City Hall was built. So they're getting aged, and so we need to account for those, that when the time comes to replace it, that we can, because our police department was about melting when theirs went out. Because then you call them and they're like, well, we can't go out there for 2 or 3 weeks, because they're all busy installing them in the new homes. Yeah, but that's what that's for. The water reserve fund, that one, we have a large transfer coming in because we'll be getting that reimbursement at the end of this fiscal year, so it'll be a carry over and then we'll transfer it into our reserves. There's not another big project coming out of the water reserve fund. We have to create a new fund for the Geo bond project, both for the project and then separately to track the property taxes that we collect on it and the payment that goes out. So those are the 2 new funds this year. That's why you don't see a lot of the activity here. But just when you start any other project, sometimes once you start digging, you come to find out that, oh, maybe we should upgrade this, or we accidentally hit this and need to replace it. So for those what ifs, we've allowed some activity here, but no other major water project. The sewer reserve fund, very similar to the water reserve fund. Pretty much parallel. Then our street reserve fund, that one has activity. That one is because we have kind of combined our street projects that we wanted to do this past fiscal year and moving them over to this next fiscal year. And a lot of those street projects we hope to be taking care of in this fiscal year. It'll just be a matter of prioritizing which one will be first, second, third, and start knocking those down. But they definitely, the street reserve fund will see the most activity. Next, we have the capital project fund, which is the new fund that I was talking about. So all of our Geo bond capital project fund activity will happen here. This fund is strictly for the Geo bond projects. And because they are combined, water and wastewater is just one fund here. Our beginning cash, because we will be getting our Geo bond proceeds the end of this fiscal year, it reflects as a beginning balance in the next fiscal year. The other revenue is just interest earned that we estimate with the very low interest rates that we have. And then the activity is down at the bottom with a little over 6 million as the capital outlay going in strictly to the Geo bond projects. Any questions about that? The Cdbg capital fund, yes, Brenda.
I did have a little question. So under the reserves for the Geo bond, the reserves are to tackle phase 2 maybe, or.
This would be for the next fiscal year, because we're not gonna spend it all in one fiscal year. It's gonna be a 3-4 year project.
I just wanted to make sure that was my assumption. I didn't want to.
And we're probably not gonna spend the full 6 million this year, but just in case we were to get bigger bills come in from the architects, the engineers, the contractors.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make sure.
Yes. Cdbg, that is the migrant head start that is just a block down from us. We're finally thrilled that it's getting completed. It started in 2015. It officially got on the books 2016. And here we are at the end of 2021 fiscal year. And my golly, we're finally about done.
So the city
And we-
owns that?
Well, we were a
Oh,
sponsor.
Okay, that's where you get the block grant money.
Yes.
They pass it through the city.
Right, OCDC was not eligible, was not an eligible recipient
Okay.
for a CDBG grant, and so the city volunteered to be the sponsor for it.
Okay.
So, you know, they get to say on how the building's gonna be designed, what colors they want, what doors and all of that. But I get to like be on everybody, I can call the contractors and be like, what's the holdup? I can call CASA and be like, get this done, and I have done that a lot.
Good job.
We've
Yeah.
pushed through the stay-at-home and quarantine thing to get this project done. I was actually hoping to be able to close this fund this fiscal year, and I didn't have to have it on the budget, but they, you know, with the timing of the finishing the project and then the retainage that you pay out, it's probably not gonna be till July that we give out the final payments. So that's why it's still here.
Okay.
But we may even have the open house in June. Fingers crossed. My other new fund is the Geo Bond Debt Fund. So this one is strictly to track how much property taxes on the Geo Bond we will collect, and then the payment back for our annual payments back for the debt on the Geo Bond. That is all this is gonna be keeping track of in this fund. And it's required to have a separate fund just for that. The next two, the water bond fund and the sewer bond fund, are the ones that I said no new taxes are coming in. The only taxes listed on there are the prior year's assessment and taxes that will be coming in. So as people who are late pay up, and as some of them fall off the statute of limitations, these funds will start to disappear and fade depending on how soon we get them cleaned up. But no new taxes on these two. Any questions on the debt bonds? The bond funds?
Question, Martha. You're talking about refunding will allow for only one tax payment from residents of Boardman and for a lower rate overall. Do we have any idea what that lower rate would be to the residents of Boardman?
Well, it's all based on what our annual assessment is. So, you know, the more new houses come on and the lower, we are estimating right now at $222 per thousand of assessed value.
But that's not set in stone, though. It's contingent on getting a lot more housing built.
No, that's not right. We're paying 2.2 for.
Oh,
our
that's
interest.
right, yeah.
We're thinking, when we went to the bond, when we went to the public, we thought it cost $1.56.
Right.
We're down to $1.42.
46 is about 10 cents
Yeah.
less.
Yes,
Okay.
46. And the more houses that come on,
It's gonna look.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And, you know, if there be a miracle happen,
Well, they do have.
I know, it, I think we're gonna have one, that it won't cost us all of the bond money, and then we eventually can pay down the debt too, so that the people will not get taxed so much.
They would appreciate that.
Oh, I'm all for it. I'm all about money. I don't care whether it's saving or spending. I got it.
Yeah, we're gonna be spending money.
Yeah, it's sad.
Any other questions? Okay, well, next I just have a budget summary by fund. So it's the detailed funds that we just went through, all summarized in one line item per fund for resources and for expenditures. And these are just, this one and the next one where it's by category, it's just the same numbers rearranged, you know, either by just fund totals or by category totals. So that you have those for comparisons and to be able to look at them a different way. But it's the same funds, the same figures just different categories.
Now, again, a question. The property tax levy on the last page, is that what we were just talking about? The increase in investment from 410 to 1,000,002.
Yes, the 410 was on our previous two geo bonds,
Okay.
and then the 1.2 is now for the new geo bond.
And just because we're talking money,
Yours or mine?
actually, we're gonna talk about COVID money.
Okay.
And if all of a sudden, see, we're trying to prepare ourselves to be what they call shovel ready. And if the government would say, and we could figure out how to get a great project for a water project, then we wouldn't have to spend our bond money. I would take federal. If it was a gift,
Well,
I would
sure.
take a gift and not spend that money. I can't give the bond money back for 10 years, 8 years. But I can put it in reserve and, you know, get interest, whatever that would be, nothing. But I wouldn't have, and I could lower that debt. So I'm more excited than ever,
Good tell.
you know, because it could come. I mean, you know, the government's wanting to throw money at everybody. And this time, Boardman's ready. I mean, we're really ready with projects that are designed, and all I have to do is just grease the palm of my hand, man.
Hold big net out.
Yeah, that's right. So there is a lot of positive things. COVID in a lot of ways has, well, and if you look at 2 years ago's actual, I think that's the part you need to look at too. If you look at the 2 year ago actual figures that we did compared to the figures that we're proposing now, it almost seems like that we are out of our minds. I mean, there is so much more money and different ways of spending it. And then you still have the federal government saying, you know, we'd be happy to send you more. And you're thinking, well, I only have grandkids that aren't given Social Security, so. But anyway, if we get money, we're taking it. And we're not letting our citizens have to pay.
Nice. So that's our statement of indebtedness, our general obligation bond, 20,320,000. Our other borrowings is the city hall mortgage of 225,000. And we do anticipate paying it off this coming fiscal year, so that one will be done.
Remember when it started? Hi, Angel.
See, and you came back around to full circle.
Super young.
And property tax levy is down here. We have our permanent rate levy at 4.2114. And then our levy for the general obligation bonds. And that is why you have that on your motion, because we do have to have that all worded out in the motion. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, Barry.
Yeah, nice work.
Yes, you're doing a whole thorough exercise, appreciate all of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The challenge is like, budget, do you want, budget, do you want? Like the drop of a hat type of a shake.
It's a lot of information
And
on a lot of
CDBG.
stuff.
Yeah, and the binder head start, I could not let them fall behind again. I'm like, get this done.
Appreciate your work.
Yeah, even though.
Yeah, I had a baby along the way, had preemies, which was the naked for 5 weeks.
You know, COVID, you know, why not?
What else you got?
Well, I think this last two months, we've really poured it on some art. Because being shorthanded, and I mean, there's no doubt about it, it's been pouring it on her. And she's not wavering either, so.
She doesn't. So we are finished. I guess I would entertain a motion to approve the city of Boardman budget.
I'll move that the City of Boardman Budget Committee approve the proposed City of Boardman budget for 2021 to 2022 as presented in the amount of $53,343,618. And approve property taxes at a rate of 4.2114 per $1,000 of assessed value for the permanent rate tax levy, and in the amount of $1,236,310 for the general obligation bond levy.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget for 2021 to 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Would you like a roll call?
Yeah, we probably should.
Leslie,
Yes.
Paul Beagle,
Aye.
Katie,
Yes.
Junior, Isaac,
Yes.
Brenda,
Yes.
Paul Keeper,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Sonia,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Bill, Alejandra. Yes. I should never repeat everybody.
Okay. Well, unless there's any other questions, we can close the budget meeting.
Have to have a break.
No, we do.
No, I thought we'd power through it before I said something about someone. Couldn't wait.
You gotta pull your own wagon.
I kind of felt bad for the set, both sides. Okay. So the meeting's closed, right?
Yes. Thank you, David.
We off recording.
So we don't have to have the one on the